Build creative confidence. Beat the inspiration addiction. Join the Writer's Gym. Today on the Writer's Gym, I am joined by one of the writers who has had the most consistent positive effect on my life, and I know the life of a lot of people I work with and clients in the Writer's Gym. I'm delighted to welcome Doug Naylor. Doug is an Emmy award-winning scriptwriter, novelist and director. He co-created the long-running, hugely successful sci-fi comedy Red Dwarf, has written or co-written every episode across 13 series, and has directed over 20 episodes. Doug also co-founded Grant Naylor Productions in 1991, which made series 4 to 10 of Red Dwarf. Doug has also written 3 best-selling novels. He co-wrote a #1 single, which shall remain nameless, but has the words song and chicken in the title. Doug also co-created the Carlton TV series The 10%ers, for which his script Table 11 won a British Comedy Award. Formerly, he was head writer and script editor on the original run of the hugely popular satirical puppet show Spitting Image, and he has also written a number of award-winning radio shows. His alma mater was Liverpool University, where he claims he was thrown out at the end of his second year for drinking too slowly. In September 2025, Doug's middle grade novel Sing Bin Island was published by David Fickling Books, and he is currently working on the second in the series. Doug, it is such a pleasure to see you again, and I am so sorry that as we had put this date in the diary a while ago, we heard of the death of Rob Grant yesterday.
Yeah. Absolutely flawed. I mean, just came completely out of the blue. I was not expecting anything like that. And it was so strange because Rob was so excited. He'd just done his new Red Dwarf novel and was looking forward to, I think, copy editing they had to do, but it was there. And then this terrible thing happens. Yeah, I'm speechless.
And it was announced yesterday afternoon, evening. Did you have any warning beforehand, or did you find out as well?
Oh, no, I knew in the morning. Someone told me first thing in the morning. So, yeah, I was ahead of most things, yeah.
The relationship of a co-writer, I won't say it's something I've never experienced. Certainly I've not experienced it on that scale, but you wonderfully had a bio that described you as a Gestalt entity who, for tax reasons, had completely separate wives. At one point, the writers listening to this, who some are sort of BAFTA Carnegie winners and some are picking up a pen for the first time and going, what's this then? Yeah. I think that experience of writing with somebody, particularly, you started together very early, didn't you?
We met at school when we were 9.
Yeah.
And I've said in my little piece that I wrote about Rob, I mean, we made one another laugh and just kept doing that throughout school. And then I happened to see a piece in one of the newspapers about this guy who had written a sitcom, and it was coming on ITV that evening. And I think we were 20 at the time, both at Liverpool University, not particularly enjoying the course because neither of us were really good at maths. And it seemed to be all about maths. And I said, I can't believe I've just seen this article in the paper. This guy's written a sitcom. He's never written anything before, and it's on TV tonight. I didn't realize how easy it was to get a sitcom on TV. I'm going to do that because it makes so much sense of why there's so much bad comedy on, apart from Porridge and Fawlty Towers, which everyone loved. And Rob said, I'll give you a hand with that. And so that was really the start of our professional we were professional there, we were amateur, but that was the start of where we wrote this sitcom called The Big Time about 2 private detectives. I can't remember how long it took, but it did take a while. And then we sent it off to the BBC. I'm very, very, very optimistic that they were going to send a car around with a driver and chauffeur us around to BBC TV Centre and give us a series. And we got a rejection letter, but it was a very nice one, which said, although this isn't quite for us, it's not laughter-evoking. We've tried the private detective genre before, and comedy private detective genre before. It never quite works. However, it is clear that you write mildly amusing dialogue. And so this was the mildly amusing dialogue. So from going, this is going to be a series absolutely guaranteed, we were like, well, mildly accusing, that's still great. That's still fantastic. And then I think it was 2 weeks later, along with a third of our year at Liverpool University reading psychology, we got kicked out. So a professor said to me, what are you good at? Because you clearly have got no interest in this, and generally you're much better at things that you love. You need to find out what you're good at. What are you good at? He said to me. And I said, well, I can co-write mildly amusing dialogue. That's really the only thing I'm mildly good at. So I said, well, have a think. And I would definitely recommend that you do things that you love and that you're good at. You'll get much more joy out of that. So I then, when my parents were very disappointed, first of our family to go to university, they said, you must resit. So I resat, it's got quite a posh name now, but back in the day, it was called Manchester Polytechnic. I resat my psychology course and went there for 2 weeks before I realized it was as impossible to understand as it had been at Liverpool. And I absolutely didn't want to do this. And I was just so miserable. So I used to skive off every day and go to Manchester Central Library and read books on writing and scripts and screenplays and biographies while pretending, as far as my parents were concerned, that I was going to Manchester Poly.
Which, in other words, was you giving yourself the degree that you really needed to do.
That's right. Yes, I was my own lecturer. So I'd read around the subject greatly. And then if I was doing particularly well in reading, and I was also doing writing as well, I would give myself the afternoon off and then I would go and watch comedy movies. I ended up, I think, seeing Woody Allen's Sleeper about 24 times, trying to work out what he did and how he did it. And then when it came to exam time, I had to fess up and confess I hadn't been going there and that I wanted to be a sitcom writer. And Rob had got a job and he got fired because he put an extra 0 in a check. and instead of paying someone £10,000, he paid them £100,000. And so because he couldn't, I tell you, he was no good with numbers, that boy.
There's something in that, though, isn't there? That is such important career advice that if there was a message I'd want to send back to myself struggling with those things, when your brain is rebelling, there's a reason. If something isn't for you, it already knows.
Yes, that's so true. It's so true. And just the embarrassment and being there and, I'm just so hopeless. I'm stupid. I don't want to be here. It was an awful feeling. So then it was a question of, okay, well, if you want to be a sitcom writer, my father said, slightly disbelievingly, then you need to get yourself a job to finance your way to being a hit sitcom writer. And I went, yes, and I'll have a job by the end of tomorrow. And he went, yeah, no, you won't. But sure enough, we both got new jobs working for, I think we were called General Universal Stores, putting paper into computers. So we did that, got paid for that, and then went back to writing. We decided this time to write a sitcom for radio because we figured, well, frankly, their standards wouldn't be as high. And so we'd have a better chance of getting in. And we decided instead of a sitcom, we would write a sketch show. So we wrote a sketch show called Hot Potatoes, I think it was called. Sent it off, didn't take a copy, of course, of the script, and we never heard back from them. It had got lost. So we remembered it, sent a second script off, and got a very nice letter back from a guy called Edward Taylor, who said it wasn't quite Radio 3 and it wasn't quite Radio 4. It was sort of Radio 3.5. But there was talent there, and he wanted to introduce us to the radio department, BBC Manchester, which is where we lived. And he said, were making a sketch show called Comedy First for first-time writers, and this might be down your alley. And so that was really the start of our journey. We arrived at the BBC, both wearing suits and ties as if we were going to a wedding, and then met a producer in a pub who wore jeans and a T-shirt. It was, we didn't wear suits again, that's for sure.
Can I ask you about the mental positioning of that? Something that really strikes me about every stage of finding out you're not into something or something isn't working for you and going, right, well, I need to do something that is working for me.
Yeah.
That is such an important thing. And I think one of the ways many of my peers, my clients, have repeatedly not quite heard that, not given ourselves permission to go, it's not about following the rules. It's about how the rules help you get to find out who you are and then do that.
Yeah, that's really interesting about not following the rules, because it always feels terribly wrong. I mean, I felt like I was an outlaw. Basically, how did he go to college today? Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I hadn't been to college. had been to Central Library. So it felt, and also I knew that there was a time lock on it because I couldn't keep doing that because eventually exams were going to come and I couldn't possibly do the exams because I hadn't done any of the courses. In fact, if I went back in for poly, probably no one would even know who I was. And they didn't write any letters going, "Where are you?" It was just sort of like, you didn't show up, you didn't show up. So yeah, that's interesting.
But you've given yourself the permission. Yeah. And this is where I think there is a tendency, which I now fight every time I spot it, of am I waiting for somebody else's permission? And the thing that I hear in your story that I find enormously helpful is, although it felt unpleasant to be lying to people, there was a deeper truth that actually you were listening to.
Yes.
You did know, I am not on earth to do this. I am on earth to do that. It was in there somewhere.
Absolutely. And certainly when I got the job, which was not an interesting job at all, I absolutely knew I certainly wasn't going to do that. And there was a guy, I think he said to Rob, if you keep doing this for 2, 3, 4 more years, you could be sort of like the associate assistant manager of this place. Yeah. And Rob, I remember Rob telling me this and me thinking, oh my God, he's going. I'm losing him. He's going to be seduced.
Yeah,
by
he's going to become one of everybody.
Yeah, yes. And I went, are you mad? No, you don't want to work here. This is crazy.
And was that a conversation? Or
that was a conversation, yeah. And then we got this opportunity to write a sketch for this new sketch show. It was just one commission. It had to be 3 minutes. It could be anything about anything. And we decided that we were going to do a parody. I don't know why we did this. It was going to be set in a waxwork museum, and Humphrey Bogart, as a sort of Raymond Chandler type private eye, was going to be the hero, and other waxworks were going to be going missing, and he was going to investigate. But we were going to write it in a Raymond Chandler style with all the similes and the metaphors. And so we took a week off work, and Rob read 3 Chandler novels and I read 3 different Chandler novels. So we really felt we had that technique down. And then we wrote this thing, and it was the hit of that particular show. And then it went down to London. They rejected the pilot, said it wasn't any good. But who wrote the Bogart sketch, the waxwork sketch? And they were told it was us. And they said, right, get those guys to write half of the new pilot and then send us a new one. So that's what happened. It then went to series. And we were given, the BBC were absolutely incredible. They gave us our own office. We were sort of taken under the wing, eventually, of a guy called Mike Craig, who used to work massive amounts of radio shows, including the Grumbleweeds. And in fact, he's sort of a guy who knew everyone, worked with Morecambe and Wise, and he was extremely extrovert and always introduced us incredibly. These are the 2 most talented young writers in the country. It was like, oh my goodness. If my parents could be listening to this, they wouldn't be so worried. And there was one time we were in the BBC bar, and we loved Bob Hoskins, who had done one of his early movies at the time, was, a huge movie star. But he had also done this series on BBC Two, I think it was, for people who couldn't read and write. And so it was the difficulties. He was this character, and his language was always so rich, and we just loved him. And we said, God, we'd love to work with him one day. And there he was in the bar. And I spotted him. I said, look, there's Bob Hoskins. And Mike Craig, our mentor, said, don't you know Bob? We went, no, of course we don't. He went, oh, I'll introduce you. So he went across and went, Bob, this is Rob, this is Doug. They're the 2 most talented writers in the country today. Lads, sit down. Bob, what you drinking? Thora Hurd was with him. Thora, what you drinking? I'll go and get the drinks. So off he went to get the drinks, and I said to Bob Hoskins, so how long have you known Mike? And he said, I've just met him.
Oh, what a life lesson.
That was Mike. That was Mike.
Because the thing with that is just having people model that behaviour of, I want to make this happen. I have the right to make this happen. Yeah. Not bullshitting yourself, not drowning in imposter syndrome. Just going, I've got a story, bring it forward. That feels like a really good example to have.
I know. Yeah. I know. And that was it. And so we had a really amazing afternoon chatting to Bob. Can
I ask you about co-writing in terms of pushback? Because listening to you tell that story, one of the things on my mind is there will be times in the realization of any story where it's very important to say, no, I disagree, that's not working.
Yeah.
Could we talk about the art of knowing when is the time to push back or how that works? I mean, I haven't asked you about whether co-writing for you two started on a piece of paper or improvisation or face-to-face.
It was so much like this. We're just sitting opposite one another and we go, okay, what are we going to do? Have we got any ideas? And then if we got, say, an idea for a sketch, we'd then develop it. If we got an idea for, when we were doing sitcom stories, we would write as many ideas down as possible without committing to any one. So it was just like, what can happen? Okay, Rimmer can do this and da-da-da. Okay, boom. And I would write it down in a book. Okay. And then we'd have about 30, 35 ideas, not worked out, but just, that's quite. And then we'd go, what's the best idea here? And we go, oh, my favorite is this one. We nearly always agreed. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's write that. And then we would map it out. Okay, so this happens, that happens. Right, in the first scene, this could happen. Yeah, right. And all scribbled down. And then we would start writing it. And if we disagreed, the rule was we would both have to agree to something. So there were no arguments. The only near argument was I kept nagging him that we needed a robot in Red Dwarf. And he went, a robot's a cliche. We haven't got aliens. We've got genetic mutants. We're quite close to aliens, but okay. And a robot is really cliched. And I went, I get that. I totally get it. But we need another character. And as soon as we've killed off the human race, and, and we've got one hologram, we don't want another one, and we've got the cat, we need something, and we've got a senile computer, a robot would be okay. So he went, okay, let's write one with a robot in it, and that was Crichton, the very first Crichton, which was the first show of season 2. And then after that, I went, we've got to get that character back. And he wasn't sure, but eventually he gave in. But other than that, I mean, I was reading in a paper that we broke up because of creative differences. Well, that's genuine news to me because I don't remember any.
I was so touched. I went back and did some research, obviously, not just reading Simbin Island, but having a happy nerd dive on everything I loved at the age of well, all ages really, but 14. We had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who's a horror writer, Ali Wilkes, and she mentioned we were talking about how there's a bit of a renaissance for a lot of us of this kind of age where we feel like there is now a fashion rather than a denial to get back in touch with the 14-year-old self that you were. And I'm listening to you say certain things that I see now in Simbin Island, but I realise I also see in Red Dwarf, and I thinking about how maybe I did internalise how some of these are said. One of my favourites in Simbin Island is sometimes for the best treasure you have to dig below the surface, like the best friendships, they can sometimes take a little while to uncover. And I was thinking of how there's the level of life that we're all living on, and it's a little bit survivalist. And then you really see something that tells you how to live. And I was listening to essentially one of the last dialogues between Rimmer and Lister in The Promised Land. Yeah. In which both of them show the best of themselves.
Yeah, it's the moonlight scene.
Yes.
That was a scene I just wrote and it didn't really seem to fit anywhere. And Richard, my son, was the producer of that. And he went, what have you got? Where are you? Up to the script. And I went, I'm here with this first draft. And I've got a load of sort of scenes that I don't know what I'm doing with that. And he read the moonlight scene and went, why is this not in? This has got to be in. This is the best thing you've written in this. And I went, oh, right. Okay. And I said, it's pathos though. He said, yeah, but that's got to go in. So he spotted it. I don't know whether I would have spotted it later, but he certainly, he was very, very insistent that it was strong.
So another example of when that relationship between not writers per se, but creators.
Yeah.
Something.
He was amazing. Yeah, he's been amazing, and he's doing very well in his own right as well as a writer. So that was a fantastic collaboration, actually.
I'm going to stay with what felt to me like a theme is where you've got people like Rimmer who are following the rules and who only know how to chase self-esteem by following rules that clearly aren't serving them in any way at all. But that's that is what they are going to judge themselves by, make themselves miserable over and over again. There's that lovely bit at the beginning of Sin Bin Island where his mum says, Jack, as you get older, you'll learn being embarrassed is a waste of time. Who cares what people think of you? It's what you think of yourself that counts. And all he can see is that the bully's just taken a photo of him with the bras in the shot. I love moments where those realities are compared. I see you enjoying what characters can and can't see of the world around them.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the fun things about writing for younger characters, because they see less of the world and they think things, we look back at that time and think, oh gosh, I used to get so embarrassed about this and I don't anymore. You know, that was so silly. But when you're actually there, it's the end of the world. It's not silly at all. It's just hideous. So that's quite I've really kind of enjoyed writing younger characters for that reason.
And indeed, the ends of worlds being the beginning.
Yeah.
Which personally is often true and certainly never feels like it at the time.
Yeah, that's right. That's very right.
I mean, I'm going to be completely spoiler-free about Sin Bin Island. I'm probably not going to be spoiler-free about Red Dwarf because people can damn well catch up at this point. But I do enjoy that we're laughing at them, but fundamentally we're laughing with them, that we are fond of who they are.
Yes, I think that's important.
I've adored Rimmer for, I adore them all, but I've adored Rimmer, and I've occasionally just had that conversation with myself. Really? Why? But there's always the glimmer of hope, isn't there? And that's it's not just that sitcom tragic hero doesn't learn what they're doing wrong. It's something else with you, I think.
I think he is a tragic figure for all sorts of things, for all sorts of reasons. And of course, the fact he's actually dead just kind of proves his case. Life is really, really unfair. And the fact he's dragged back to keep this guy he can't stand sane is it's hell for him. And he has his own ambitions.
I touched on it earlier, but the example of finding your own permission to write what is interesting to you and what is important to you. That one of the first draft commandments that I use with the writer Jim is aim to be interested, not interesting.
Right.
Make sure that you're...
I mean, it's interesting. There's a rule, and we were told this. We went into the BBC very early on. I think, what had we done? I think we were in the middle of Spitting Image. And they said, have you got any ideas? And we were very, very enthused. We wanted to write a Japanese prisoner of war camp. And our thinking behind that was it would be a mashup of MASH and porridge, with a bit of The Great Escape thrown in. So we thought, that's great. That's so rich for comedy. And the head of comedy said, have you ever been locked in a Japanese prisoner of war camp? I go, oh, no, of course. Oh, no. And he went, write what you know. He said, because if you write what you know, it will always be better. And that's a rule that you hear a lot. Cut to, we eventually get a sitcom. You can see where this is going. A sitcom on TV, and this is bloke is a cat, this is hologram, this is thing, this is last man. And that's not right. Except it is. The part that is, here are two guys working in a dead-end job, that was us. The idea of here you are in this vast space and no one's here was a bit of a nod to Thatcherite Britain at the time, where it's all these kids lounging around, run down shopping malls who couldn't afford to do anything, but were just there sheltering from the rain with no money. So there are things like that is mixed into the reality. A Jobsworth. We met Jobsworth when we were at our job. A slob. We were both slobs in different ways. And so it's a mixture of writing what you know and not writing what you know.
It's the heart of what you know, isn't it? We can change setting, but the human reality is what you know. That's right.
Yeah. You don't get Game of Thrones if you're just writing what you know. You don't get Dragons if you're just writing what you know.
But if you don't start from what you know, you don't get anything at all.
That's exactly right. Yeah. The audience has got to be able to understand and relate to it. I get why that person, I felt like that. That's what I would do. Or, I wouldn't do that.
That life lesson again and again of Lister fundamentally getting the joke. He's not up himself because he gets the joke. Rimmer doesn't. And that's what traps it. But I know you've mentioned that you're writing Sin Bin 2 at the moment.
Yes, I am. I think their plans are to publish it in 27. So, because it has to go in about 9 months to a year ahead of publishing for some reason. So I'm delivering my first draft to them the end of March.
Yeah. At the risk of sounding like a control freak, she said, sounding like a control freak, I think I've always been more attracted to writing on my own because that is my fundamental experience of it, that you're creating a world. And I find the idea quite fascinating and confusing of working together. But is writing on your own as fun for you, differently fun for you, as natural?
I never written on my own. I mean, apart from not in a sustained professional way at the time, I'd written, we did a sitcom about students actually and trying to make it work. And we could never quite make it work and we couldn't understand why. We didn't know enough about things then. And if we had finished it, it would have gone into the BBC almost certainly at the same time, if not just a bit before the young ones. But it didn't have that anarchy that the young ones had. So I'd been used to writing with a writing partner, with Rob, throughout. And then we got to a point where we were writing the 10%ers, which was a sitcom for ITV. And Rob said, I don't want to write with you anymore. He never really gave a reason. I want to write on my own. And we were in sort of nearly into pre-production and we hadn't got the scripts. And so I went, I think that's a completely bonkers idea. And he went, well, that's what I want to do. So I then we had our shared agent at the time, and the shared agent said, have you got any ideas? And I said, yes. He said, honestly, you're going to get so far behind with the scripts if you don't start doing them. And I went, I completely agree. He said, write one on your own this weekend, he said, and hand it in, and then let's go from there. So I wrote a script in a weekend, took it in, and my agent gave it to Rob, and he took a copy, and they both read it. And sort of to my amazement, actually, Rob went, this is really funny. I think this is really great. You've cracked the series. This is what the series should be about. I'm really enthused. I'm going to write scripts now. Yeah. And this is the template for how we write scripts. And my agent, I think if Rob had hated it, I think my agent might not have been so enthusiastic. But anyway, he was incredibly enthusiastic too. And he said, right, off you go. You write the second one. Rob's going to get on with his. So I wrote then 3 scripts, and then Rob came in. He was late bringing them in, but he brought in 3 scripts, and the director didn't like any of them. And so it was like, this is not what we want. Can I help? Can I punch them up? Shall we go back to writing them together again? No, absolutely not. I want to write them on my own. And then he demanded from the director that he shot the scripts as he had written them, despite the director not liking them. And then the director went, absolutely not. I won't do that. So my agent then had to come in and said, look, I'll resolve this situation. I went, okay, I'll come with you. He went, no, we don't need you. We don't want you. So he went into a room with Rob. They had a chat. He came back and said, fine, it's all resolved. I went, brilliant. What's happened? Rob's resigned, and now you're writing the whole series on your own.
How nice of them to let you know.
Yes, that was lovely. So there were scripts at half. We got in some other writers at some point, so I had to rewrite scripts, and I had to write a script a week for 4 weeks because it was a series of 7. So that was the first time of writing on my own. So you won't be surprised to hear I didn't enjoy it very much.
And then I'm not quite right in my timeline at the moment with the novels.
The novels, the first 2 we wrote together, and then it was a very similar situation where we're going to write The Last Human. We had the title together. I don't want to write with you, he said. Why don't we write separate chapters? So you write the first chapter, I'll write the second chapter. I tell you what, no, you write the first 3 chapters and I'll write the second 3 chapters. Going, Robbie, sure, this is a good idea. Yeah, it's fine. So I wrote my 3 chapters, and then he came and said, where's your 3 chapters? Writer's block. I haven't really, no. Tell you what, you write the next 3 chapters as well as the first 3 chapters, and I'll write the next 6 chapters. So you can see where this is going, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
So I then had my 6 chapters, and then he produced something that was just unspeakably bad, honestly. I mean, I remember my lawyer reading it and going, there aren't even any verbs in this. What is he doing? This is unprincipled. And so Rob then went, okay, you write this book. And by the way, you've got to have it in 3 months because we've been sued by Penguin for not delivering the scripts. I think we're a year late already. and I'll do the next one. And so that's what happened. And of course, the Clever Clogs, he had 15 months to write his book, and I had to write mine in 3 months.
I mean, as much as I'm in favour of self-permission, that's quite another level.
Yeah. So those were the first 2 experiences of writing on my own. And they were just horrible. And also because Rob did the typing, and I would do, I would pace up and down, do the dialogue and ad lib and blah, blah. I was suddenly typing, and I remember, and I'm still got the scars today, I didn't know how to put the page numbers on the page. And it really, really bothered me because it reminded me of how completely pathetic I was. And I shouldn't be doing this. And everything's gone wrong. And it wasn't the equivalent of a Google or a search engine to find out. And so I devote 20 minutes a day to trying to work out how to get page numbers on and then go back to writing it.
I'm so glad you've shared that with us, because one of the most important things I think beginner writers particularly get to hear is that no matter how many Emmys, no matter what happens next, there will always be things that make us feel like we're slightly just pretending, or it's not. You're not a proper grown-up.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that never goes away. Even if you've done something successful and you start on the new project, you go, this is going to be a turkey. This is going to be terrible. You get the voices just the same.
And it's either just, what do I know because I haven't done anything? Or now that I've done something, what if it's not received as well as that?
Absolutely. Or there was
puts on a different hat.
Absolutely. Maybe that thing was a fluke. It was just everything aligned and, it came out good. But now it's the real you and you don't know what you're doing again.
And it is that, isn't it? It is human nature, which is why all of these questions about writing that I find most useful to hear as a writer and that I want to share with people, it's about finding what works for you. Yeah. It's not about waiting for those feelings to go away. It's about knowing those feelings are part of the contract of being human. Yeah. And it's pat it on the head while it sits next to your keyboard and carry on, really.
I think one of the things that you can't simulate when you're trying to break in is the reality of a real deadline. The advantage of a real deadline, where you're absolutely stuffed if you don't deliver on the day that you've agreed to deliver on, is you've got to deliver something. But you can't simulate this, I don't think. This gets rid of, I haven't got time to worry about the page numbers. I haven't got time to worry about whether I'm useless or not. I have got to finish something. I've got to finish it. I've got to do it. I'm going to be sued. I'll be finished if I don't do this. And so just getting through it, because so many writers trying to break in don't finish the project.
And you learn from what you finish.
And you absolutely, also you can say that's finished. And then you can go, okay, I'll stick it in a drawer for 6 weeks. Then I'll come back, I'll read it again. What do I think? I can even show it around to people. What did you think? Did you get bored? Where did you get bored? What do you think of the characters? Blah, blah, blah. But you've got something that's finished. And then it's in the rewrite and the rewrites. And that's really where I've always thought things get good in the rewrites. It's like, oh, what's my theme? You don't know your theme until you've written the first draft. Then you might be quite surprised what your theme is, but it will be there. And then you can start to pick it out. And also then you've got the fun of, oh, I can see things now. I didn't know that was going to happen at the end. Whether you're a plotter or a pantser, I don't believe even if you've plotted everything that you know everything. You get to certain situations where you go, oh, that surprised me.
This was the word in my head, something that a director said to us a long time ago, which I find enormously helpful in writing as well as acting, is your job is to be permanently surprised.
Right.
But it is about getting into that state of receiving the universe.
Yes, I find it next to impossible, especially with a novel. I know where I'm going. And I know that's going to happen. And I know in broad strokes what's going to happen. So, for example, in Simbin Island, I know the thing isn't about finding the treasure. And they just go, hey, look, here's the treasure chest and there's loads of gold in it. And wow, we've done it. The end. That would be hopeless. So I know it's not about that. And I know the treasure chest won't necessarily have even necessarily any treasure in it, but it will have something in it, but somehow everything will get resolved. So it can be as rough as that. Then you start to write it and then you uncover things.
There was a David Bowie line on Black Star on this final album about if I never see the English evergreens I'm running to, it's nothing to me. It's not about getting there. It's it's about the story continuing. And I was thinking about that when I rewatched The Promised Land yesterday or whenever it was. Those cats saying it was in here all the time. It was so neat. Like, it didn't feel predictable, even though the title was right there going The Promised Land, that it almost didn't matter whether Lister gets back to Earth. You didn't have that shortchange feeling that the arc has been this is the character goal. It was still the goal, and yet it wasn't.
Yes. 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 No, I understand. Yes.
And I admittedly I reviewed it at the time, but I don't think that struck me until yesterday. Right. That when you love your characters, as you say, the treasure, they are looking for treasure in some way, but how they find it or what happens the treasure needs to not be the point, because the characters are the point.
Yes. And also you can discover things. I mean, with Cav in this, I knew she had a secret, but I didn't know what the secret was. And I didn't really much care that I didn't know. I just thought, well, she'll have one, and at some point she'll tell me and I'll know what it is. And
the pain she's in to cover the secret.
Yeah. And it could be one or two things, but I've generally no idea what it is. Genuinely. And I started to write the scene where Diggs asks her and she won't tell him. And I thought, no, that's quite logical that she won't tell him. And indeed, she won't tell me either. And then we got to the campfire scene. And then I thought, right, Kev, you've got to fess up here, because what is it? I've no idea. And it was almost like someone else was writing it. It was so bizarre. And there was the secret. And it made me cry as I was writing it, which is back to that thing you were talking about earlier, which is about if you can surprise yourself, you're likely to surprise your audience.
Yeah. And that's when it's natural. It's a trusting relationship. There's the conscious mind doing its job, but really all the conscious mind is about is making as much space as possible for whatever else is going to come through. Yeah. The other thing that I think you do in Sin Bin Island that I think makes you a nicer person than me is that a bully becomes a friend in a way that I felt that if there's something that makes me angriest, it's people using that sort of power for evil. You really enjoyably make an ally. And there's just that wonderful line about when it's important, for reasons I will not say because spoilers, but it's important that Diggs gets into trouble, because having wanted to not get to Sin Bin Island regardless, there's now a reason that he needs to get there. And I'll misquote this because I didn't write it down, but this character says, "I'll do whatever I can to get you into trouble, mate."
Yes.
And I love that. True friendship.
Yeah, true friendship. Yes, absolutely. I really enjoyed writing those two.
And will we be with all four of them for the next story?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No,
does Miss Moriarty come back?
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Yeah. They're all back.
I will, as I say, be spoiler free, but I was interested. I think it was another useful lesson that I know you've experienced in various things about how many characters is ideal so that you have the space to get into them without feeling that you've got too many people to do justice to. Yes. And that is a good balance, isn't it?
I think, yes, for comedy probably and drama. I mean, I like dealing with four because you can also have two-handers. So you can split them up and they can go off in different directions, which we did in Red Dwarf. We didn't plan to do that, but it's how it evolved and it always worked really well. And I think when you're dealing with, 8, 10 characters, I mean, which sometimes you have to do, of course, I just find it a bit unwieldy. I'd rather have a smaller cast. And also it's easier to please the actors if you have a small cast because everyone's getting a decent part, hopefully.
Yeah, which doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
If I were to ask you to send back through time a message to a younger writer version of you or the versions of you that are out there right now, what would it have helped you to hear or to know?
It would have depended what point. I would have gone, start writing Red Dwarf novels after series 6. And just do about 30 Red Dwarf novels like Terry Pratchett would have done, and you can be living in the Caribbean and you won't have any problems. I'll save you a fortune in legal fees. It'll just be blissful.
Fair, I guess.
Yeah. But I think, no. I want to carry doing Red Dwarf and I want to direct something. I wouldn't have listened to me, but that would have probably been the advice.
There's some advice there around not listening to, I don't know if it's not listening to the negativity or not. The advice I'm taking from that arc is you had an instinct for what you did and didn't want to do in life. And sometimes it was inconvenient, but you came around to it. And I mean, the thing that I'm responding to is I was a copywriter somewhere terribly sensible and miserable out of my skull. And I lost a friend to cancer and I realised I wanted to do a show in memory of her. And I dropped out of my terribly sensible job. Yeah. And luckily I had family support and they were saying, you want to do something in memory of her. It was to raise money for Macmillan Cancer Support, which I still do every year with a sponsored ride. And if I'd done the sensible thing of staying in that job, I would never have done the meaningful things. And, if I'd done the sensible rimmer, these are the rules.
Yeah.
I would have made myself miserable. And the longer you do it, the harder it is to acknowledge that is not going to make you happy.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because certainly when I was at school, the feeling was if you obeyed the rules and you did well, with your GCSEs and your A-levels and you went to university, then you went to university and you were made for life. That was it. Just by going to university, you come out with your degree and there'd be a huge crowd outside going, yes, come this way and we'll give you a job. And it turned out it wasn't like that at all. And it's possibly even more not like that now, where you come out with huge student debt. And that's following the rules in a way. And then you get a lot of people, very disappointed and bitter.
And it makes it even more important to realise, to listen out for what you love doing.
Yeah.
And to go find a way to do it.
To do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Should we send that back in time then?
Okay. Send that back in time, please.
I'm doing that.
All right. Good.
Yeah. That's absolutely sending it back in time. Well, it has been an enormous pleasure.
It's been absolutely a delight, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Come back anytime because there's a lot of Writers' Gym stuff where we are out there in so many forms, and it is such a pleasure to have you. Doug Naylor, thank you for joining the Writers' Gym.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You've visited the Writers' Gym with author and coach Dr. Rachel Knightley. Production and sound design are by Ashley Lexine, and theme music is by Chris Gregory. To join a Writers' Gym workout online or in London, as a guest or as a member, visit writersgym.com or email thewritersgym@rachelknightley.com.